What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crawdad Lake. It is me, Video President 102, and today I'll be telling you guys about my favorite and least favorite, top 5 and least 5 to be exact, Senior Sides episodes. Please don't kill me. Just a disclaimer. I don't think any of these Senior Sides episodes are bad per se. It's just that the worst ones I'm going to be talking about are just ones that I can't really watch again and again, or even barely watch at all. Or it really just is an opinion thing. This is all my silly personal opinion. I don't mean to offend. So, also a quick note: any two-parter will be counted as one episode. So, accepting anxiety and the nostalgia episode are being counted as one episode. So, just thought I'd let you know that. So, anyway, without further ado, let's put on my pants, begin! 5th worst, losing motivation. On surface level, the episode isn't bad, but it just lost my interest so much. If an hour-long episode of Senior Sides kept my attention and it felt like time was flying faster, I mean, why can't a 15-minute episode, one of the shorter episodes, of Senior Sides? I think one of the reasons maybe that I get mad at Logan because he gets the information and he uses it a little too quickly. Like, Thomas is like, I just get a bit nervous. Oh yeah, it's Virgil's fault. Not only is he jumping to conclusions, which is something that he'll further talk about as being bad, but don't pinpoint Virgil like that. No, that's bad for the... No, just no. 5th best, dealing with intrusive thoughts. I love this episode. I was at summer camp when it came out, and we were at lunch. Now, we're not allowed to have our phones at summer camp and electronics, but we can receive emails from our parents. They're sent to the camp office, and then they're printed out and given to us at lunch. So my best friend, Diamonds and Emeralds, she was sending me emails because she's my best friend, and she missed me while I was at camp. And she told me there's a new Senior Sides episode. You know, I was excited, like I was pumped up enough, but then she said there was a new character. I am not kidding when I say I screamed, and then I started bawling. The counselors were a bit worried, and they kind of were like, oh my god, what's wrong? And I'm like, and they couldn't understand what I was saying. So then they're like, hold on, let me read this. And they start reading, I'm like, oh. Yeah, and I tried to explain to them, so they're like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, they just didn't care. Like, I was just crying. Didn't even know what the character looked like, didn't know his personality, came home, watched DeWitt, was scared for my freaking life. That episode scared me the first time I watched it, but I'm actually gonna get on to why this is a good episode now. I love the work put into this episode. The member lives say that when they were planning Remus as a character for a long time, and it definitely shows. That was the first Senior Sides episode that had me on the edge of my seat for the whole time. Like, Senior Sides, they had me on the edge of my seat, but I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The moment Thomas showed up on screen, I'm like, okay, this isn't right. Thomas is tired. He's saying tires instead of tired. Something's wrong. And I was just, like, on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like, for a whole 40-minute runtime, too. Firstly, I was waiting for Roman to wake up and confront his brother or something. That didn't happen, but, like, I love the execution of them. Like, Roman was so upset and done with Remus's BS. Like, oh my gosh. And the Duke is such a wild character. You never know what he's gonna do next. Like, when he screamed when everyone was momentarily distracted, that actually made me jump. Like, I was like, This is also such a powerful lesson that I think everyone needs to hear, and an episode illustrates in a funny way compared to what we think of when we think of intrusive thoughts. This isn't higher on the list because compared to the other episodes of Senior Sides I have up there, It doesn't balance out with the fun and seriousness as well. Most of the episode is a little too serious for me, or for a Standard Sides episode in general, but that we are talking about intrusive thoughts, and this is a more serious episode of Standard Sides. So the comedy isn't so much of a big deal as it usually would be in a Standard Sides episode. Fourth worst, growing up. This episode is really entertaining, but I do see it as one of the lesser Standard Sides episodes. Everyone, though, I can't English, sorry. Everyone, though I do see where they are coming from, is hard on Patton, like to an annoying extent, when they should understand what he is going through in the first place, considering that everyone's interest combined into Patton's interest. It's mostly Patton who influences it on Thomas. It is in the episode that probably would lead to SVS Redux and the whole self-care thing, because Patton was told by fellow sides that the TV he watches and the things he does to enjoy life isn't good because Thomas is an adult. I know they say to find a compromise between the two, but since that episode, character Thomas, slowly and notably just stopped taking time to care about himself and doing stuff that he enjoys to help his friends and family, which taking less time to watch TV is healthy, but it is something that Thomas enjoys, and like mostly cutting out of your life and stuff is not very good. Like, plus, this would have been a good time to bring up the self-care thing before SVS Redux. And of course, I still want SVS Redux to bring it up because, once again, it fits perfectly. But even just talking a little bit about self-care in this episode would have been beneficial. Also, everyone is a hypocrite to Patton. Logan says that they aren't adult enough. He freaking dabs. Roman says they aren't adult enough. Says Thomas looks like he says as he, moves around like a cartoon. Virgil says they're not adult enough. Says Thomas looks like a man and he wants to fight him. Figure of speech. They're all hypocrites. I need life. Anyway, but this is still high on the list because the moral is simple and I follow along and the moral stays on track. I get what is promised out of the episode, and I can not never laugh when Patton says, "Does adulthood work?" Like, that's the best joke and you can't tell me otherwise. Fourth best. Why do we get out of bed in the morning? This episode is so smart and creative, which is funny because it's a Logan and Roman episode. Smart and creative, Firstly, the guest stars. Even though it is just a logic versus passion episode, every character makes an appearance. Even Janice, which at the time, Janice's small appearance was such a huge deal. I also love the visuals and how Logan's and Roman's differ. Logan's just a sheet of paper and he draws as he explains, like an actual teacher with a smartboard. But Roman uses puppets, which some people say is foreshadowing for the learning new things about ourselves episode. But technically it's Patton that came up with that. And yeah. Anyway, this episode is beautifully demonstrates the tug that I feel at the same time, whether I should stay on a strict schedule to make myself a more productive member of society, or give up sleep, food, and seeing the sun and being a functioning human being to work on a project. 9 out of 10 times, I'll pick to work on the project day in and day out and just work on it from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed at 4 a.m. But, yeah. Fun fact, I actually did that with the script for this episode. And kind of fun, actually, and funny. I'm just gonna shut up. Really, though. I really didn't think there was an in-between for work and, creative thinking, but there is, and this episode taught me to do it. Do I follow their advice in balancing it out? No. But it is good to know that there is a better option out there if I could stop long enough to care. Third worst, I'm in a Disney show. Now, the episode itself is fine. I could see the excitement behind all the eyes of the characters. The acting is pristine, especially for one of the earlier episodes. But I could not really see it as a true episode of Standard Sides. Like, it's true, but The point of the series is to learn more about yourself and Thomas and deal with dilemmas through the characters. I'm fine with the Q&A going off with the dilemmas because it's a nice chill Q&A, but this is just a random episode where Thomas and the sides talk about how cool it was to be on a Disney show for a week. At least in the two I mentioned, they taught something like a proper Standard Sides episode. Not to mention the sides were pretty unnecessary. This could have been just a normal video of Thomas talking to the camera like a regular vlog. And get excited over being a Disney show. They could have had how I fixed it is they could have had a fun story with this. Like maybe he accidentally ate Jake Paul's sandwich and by mistake, so the sides talk through a proper way to apologize without seeming like you don't care or being fake, because learning how to apologize is actually a really good lesson, of the proper way to apologize. And that could tie into Patton saying I'm sorry too much and Roman apologizing and something like that. And plus the whole apologizing thing could have kept the runtime the same and still contributed a moral. He didn't even have to use any clickbait suggestions. And the thing is, he didn't even use any of the clickbait suggestions that the sides gave to him, so not a bad episode. Just one that really doesn't show Standard Sides is at all. Something that loses my attention overall. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, when I introduce my friends to Standard Sides, I like using one of the earlier episodes. So I go along with I'm in a Disney show because all the sides are excited and stuff, and it's yeah, if you want to show your friends one of the earlier episodes of Standard Sides to introduce them, I would go with the third best on my list, which is coming right now. The third best on this list, and the one I recommend showing to your friends when you're introducing them to Standard Sides, is My Negative Thinking. Firstly, the episode was the first to use the Mind Palace idea. Yes, we all know that becomes a big thing as the series goes on. That all started here. Yes, battling anxiety went to Lily's house, but they never called it Mind Palace or anything. They just said to go in the back of your mind to find recruitments. Also, I love the way Logic handles anxiety. He is a bit of a sore winner/loser, but he still takes time to confirm that Virgil did a good job, and the debate was enjoyable. Roman and Virgil did get somewhat along on the dark side of Disney episode, but most of the episode was Princey being frustrated that Virgil was ruining all the Disney films. They don't really see eye to eye until the final minute or so, where Logan can see objectively where Virgil is coming from, and that he is jumping to conclusions from the beginning. So he is cutting the seatbelt slack. Also, the references are amazing. Hamilton, Jack's films, Keep Calm, Carry On, they are everywhere, and I love how they're just casually slipped in the conversation without being noted. Second worst, becoming a cartoon. Okay. I feel like this episode is a huge wrong for Thomas's character. Virgil would be going bonkers knowing that they were going to take the time and money to fly to Butch's studio and break in. Bother one of the biggest animators of all time, then tell him to draw a cartoon. Virgil would go nuts. Now, I know in real life the meeting was planned, scheduled, and they did more than draw a short cartoon. But in the Standard Sides universe, they just decide to up and go without warning Butch. That is pretty against Thomas's kind-hearted nature, and it somehow does not affect Virgil at all. Plus, Virgil was the bad guy in the cartoon, and I can't live knowing that Butch Hartman drew villain Virgil. No. Plus, there is no moral here either. The only thing I take away out of this is a subtle flex that Thomas got a cartoon, which is still watchable and enjoyable, but not a good tier of episodes. Second best, Putting others first, SVS Redux. This episode blew me away the first time I watched it. It had me in tears. The jokes well balanced out the seriousness. All the points were made. We started our Roman arc. We finally got done with the wedding versus callback thing. We started our Janice arc. Patton learned a valuable lesson, and I think we're now wrapping up the Patton arc. And Leslie Odom Jr. was a guest star. This is the perfect balance of lesson and show, lore, and drama that we have been looking for as an audience. The lesson of self-care is one that I really needed to hear and will need to hear over and over again, and I will not listen to because I have work to do, and work needs to be done, and yeah, just don't have time for that. Anyway, this episode has such amazing gaming references, and the animation in the scenes is phenomenal. Seriously. Also, I was not expecting a song right after Forbidden Fruit into it. Usually, they play a song, they wait at least a couple episodes, and then play another song, but no. Right after Forbidden Fruit, we have Rhythm Redux. Boy. Now, it is not my favorite song, but Rhythm Redux is quite the bop. Seriously. Thomas's acting is also at its peak during this episode. You could see that Roman is going to cry. You could see that Patton's gonna cry. You could see everyone's gonna cry, including myself. Nothing to do with acting, just everyone's crying in this episode. You could see that everyone is so emotionally driven. You could see the emotion dripping off their face. That is pretty epic. Remind me to never say that again. I also want to bring up the bagel reference. I think it's my favorite reference, so far in the series. Just, overall, wonderful episode. But it would take a lot more to top my number one pick. And before we get to number ones, here is some honorable and dishonorable mentions. For the honorable and dishonorable mentions, I am only going through 3 episodes for each, because 3 just feels like a good number, and really that's all we need. So, for dishonorable mentions, selfishness versus selflessness. I love this episode so much. I can't express that enough, but because of some stuff that went down when I was 6, I get anxious when courtrooms are brought up, so I can't watch this episode without breaking down. Episode is great, just a personal thing. Only reason it's going on the dishonorable mention list. 12 Days of Christmas is the second dishonorable mention. I adore this episode, and it is such a good moral, but for some reason I feel embarrassed for Roman when he is being lectured for making Virgil say that, it feels like I'm the one being lectured and not Roman for some reason. I don't know. Once again, this is more of a personal thing. This is the only episode that makes me feel guilty for some reason. And I also don't like how Virgil was forced to put on a sweater and forced to sing, forced to stand in front of the door and sing with the group when he didn't want to. Especially the sweater. He wasn't comfortable with the sweater at first. He admittedly admits later on that it's comfortable, but, at first he didn't want to put one on, and he shouldn't have been forced to. But I really do enjoy the holiday episode, so it did make it on the list. And the last episode is Embarrassing Phases. Mummy Roman scares me, that is all. Now we are moving on to the honorable mentions. Am I an original? I was gonna put this in place of negative thinking for my top 5, but then I was thinking and realized Roman was being a bit too Roman, and full creative control was not necessary. But that's not bad, realizing Roman is a little too Roman in this episode. But I love how you get to see the sides in different scenarios, and seeing stuff they wouldn't normally do in an environment. And in this episode, there is a good chunk of bad, but the good outweighs the bad. I put negative thinking on top of this just because of the way Virgil and Logan interacted and their viewpoints and the lesson of the episode. In my original, I don't know if it is, but I thought it was common sense to think that it's really hard to make something completely original, because I just thought that was common sense. I'm not trying to be rude, but Now, second pick, the Accepting Anxiety episodes. How was this not going to make it somewhere on my positive mentions? We got our first two-part episode. We got to see Aside's room for the first time, and we got to see how the eyeshadow thing works and how the room affects others, which was so cool. It didn't make to my top 5 though because of how irritated I am at Pat in this episode for some reason. Don't know why. I'm just Anne. Number 3 pick for our honorable mentions, the Asides episode. Are there healthy distractions? I love this episode to a burning degree. It is amazing. The shot of them all on the couch together is amazing. Lessons important. Acting pristine. But I didn't put it on there because I didn't really want to include the Asides episodes because it's hard enough picking from the 29 episodes of regular Asides, let alone the healthy distractions. So, before we move on to the number 1 picks, I'm going to remind you that these are opinions. Now, let's move on to the number 1s. My least favorite episode of Asides is learning new things about ourselves. In my very humble opinion, this is the worst episode of Asides to date. All of the characters frustrate me and annoy me to a very weird degree. I get why they're acting that way, but the fact that they are acting the way they are, it just doesn't feel like proper Asides. Patton is being a bit too pushy, Roman is being a bit too judgmental, even on himself, because Roman. Logan needs anger management, and Virgil is just being mean at this point. Like at minute 8:15, Virgil has some good points about Logan and Roman after their argument. He has every right to point out what is making the work suffer, because that's kind of his job as anxiety. But then it turned into an insult, and that's not okay. Also, the puppets. I love how cute the puppets are, how hard the team, Nate Beagle and Adam Krushner, worked on bringing the puppets to life. But even though the puppets are on screen at minute 13:34, it feels like we have waited a whole hour before they got there. The whole process of making it to that point, it's super slow and it drags on forever. Also, in the incomplete song, Logan says that reviewing what we already knew is wasting time. And to be honest, it could be because I'm dumb or because I'm not getting it, but they never explain why reviewing it's good. They just say it's good to like, eh. The most we get of confirmation is when Thomas is like, oh yeah, just give it a minute and they'll bring out your point. But Logan is right in saying that there really was no reason to go over Patton and Virgil's thing. You are entitled to have your opinion, but to me, the number 1 worst episode of Asides is learning new things about ourselves. Now for the moment you all have been waiting for, my number 1 pick for Asides episodes. Drumroll please, audience. Drumroll noises. In my opinion, the best Asides episode is Moving On. Personally, I have not gone through a breakup, and the one I did was he was a thing, so I'm the one that did it, and I do not regret it one bit. But I do know a good Asides episode when I see one, and this is 10 out of 10. All the characters are perfectly balanced and act exactly how I could see them reacting to a breakup. Roman is a hopeless romantic, and he tries extremely to relight the flame. Virgil's anxious, he's anxiety. At the end, because of memories remind, and you know what, they explain this in the episode, I can't word, I think you already got Virgil's connection from the episode. Patton trying to seem happy for the others around him so they aren't hurt by him even more or worried for him. And Logan seeking out perfectly demonstrates a real breakup. When you do what they were doing in Patton's room, logic is figuratively thrown out the window. So since he is not being listened to, he just left. With any strong emotion, you tend to ignore or brush off logic because that one emotion has taken over. That was a perfect demonstration of that. Yeah, the writing is also done to a T. The writing level is at the same height as the newer episodes. And this 2-part special was the 1-year anniversary of Sides. 1 year. We are 3 years later, and the Sides episodes are just now catching up to the writing level of this episode that happened 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, yes. This episode keeps my attention and perfectly balances comedy, serious, drama, and wit. It also ties to something that Thomas is actually going through at the time, and even wrote a song about. I did not realize until a year and a half after the episode premiered that he was playing things we used to share in the back of the montage. In the episode, the little things make a big difference, like the photos in the background. Like, I found that really cool. And how they were switching, like, to represent what they were talking about, kind of. Really cool. I also have one complaint. It isn't that big, though. In the episode, everyone's focused on Patton and how he's repressing, but Roman's doing the exact same thing and they do nothing. And oh my gosh, if you just focus on Roman a little more, the series would have a little less dilemmas. Roman is creativity, he is ego. If Patton, if it's connected to Thomas and he isn't feeling his best and he doesn't feel prideful, that is Roman's job. If you're putting Roman down, you're putting Thomas down a whole bunch. Just listen to Roman a little bit more and the series would be better. The episode also contributes a lot to the whole special effects game. They go up in these special effects. They bring in so many props that they probably wouldn't have brought in if it wasn't for the episode or for Talon and Jones. Great help. They are amazing. But this episode, in my opinion, is the #1 best episode of Sides. That is it for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to... Yes, I'm paying you a fee. Or you're paying me a fee? I don't know how this works. Just kidding. No, we don't need to pay anything to each other. We're good. This is a free platform. If you enjoyed this episode, you could subscribe, and because I make other Sides related content, and you might want to stick around for that. Click on this video on your screen if you would like to participate in Diamonds and Emeralds Music Week. It is super fun and for creators of all kinds. And like always, do your best.